It was early, the kind of morning when the air seems to hold its breath. In a small town in France, the church of St. Eustace sat quiet under a pale sky. Light filtered through stained glass, painting the stone floor in muted colors, and the whole building felt wrapped in the hush of prayer. Then the doors opened, not with the creak of protest or the hurry of a human step, but with the soft, deliberate tread of hooves. A deer, slender and unafraid, stepped inside. It moved down the aisle slowly, each step measured as if it belonged there. No panic, no darting into the shadows. Instead, an almost peaceful approach, a creature that seemed to understand it was in a different kind of place. The deer paused near the front, near the tabernacle, the small ornate box on the altar where Catholics place the Eucharist, the bread believed to be the living presence of Christ. For a long moment, the deer simply stood. It looked toward that little golden door, as if it recognized something others could only name in faith. Then, as quietly as it had come, it turned and left. What makes this scene linger in the heart is not only the wonder of an animal in a human sanctuary. It's a strange, almost poetic connection to a name, St. Eustace, the patron saint of hunters. According to an ancient tale, Eustace saw a vision of Christ between a stag's antlers. That vision changed his life. A deer walking into the church named after that saint. It's the kind of moment that invites us to lean closer and listen. Stories like this stir a question in us. Can creation itself recognize what human eyes sometimes miss? In another corner of the world, far from the cool stone of rural France, a tiny miracle moved on wings the size of a thumbnail. Inside a small chapel in Brazil, cameras capture a visitor most people never see from up close, a hummingbird. It did not careen wildly through the rafters. It hovered, slow in its intensity, right in front of the monstrance, that delicate vessel that displays the consecrated host. The bird hung in the air, as though held there by something invisible. And then, with a motion so small it might easily be missed, the hummingbird bowed its head. Across cultures, the hummingbird often stands for joy, resilience, and the courage to keep moving even when the world is heavy. In this place, before the Eucharist, its tiny bow felt like an echo, a wordless recognition, not symbolism alone, but a living sign that even the smallest of creatures can know something of the sacred. Let us travel now to a night in Baltimore, 1995. The city hush is different here, cooler, threaded with anticipation. Pope John Paul II was visiting the United States. He was scheduled for a brief public greeting at St. Mary's Seminary, a brief nod, a word to the seminarians, then onward. But the Pope, known for his quiet devotion, chose something else. He slipped away through the crowd and walked into the seminary chapel to pray before the Blessed Sacrament. Security scrambled to adapt. They cleared the building. They checked every room. In their procedure, they brought in special rescue dogs, animals trained to find people trapped beneath rubble after earthquakes or collapsed buildings. Dogs have learned how to sense life hidden by stone and silence. The dogs moved through hallways. They reached the chapel. Step by step, they passed the pews and came toward the tabernacle. And then they stopped. They sniffed. They whined softly. They refused to move. Their attention was fixed on the tabernacle, as if telling their handlers, "There is something here." Handlers tugged. The dogs hesitated. They had found living people before by following an instinct rooted in life itself. Now, in that quiet chapel, their instincts seemed to be pointing to something unseen. Catholics believe that the consecrated host is not only symbol but presence, Christ truly there, in the humble reserve of bread. For those who witnessed the dog's reaction that night, it read like a small and solemn sign. Creation, even those trained to find the living under rubble, pause before the living one. Now, close your eyes for a moment and imagine a different scene. Portugal, 1946. The air bright with expectation. The country celebrating 300 years since its consecration to the Immaculate Conception. Towns are alive with processions, candles, and song. A statue of Our Lady of Fatima is taken on a long journey, carried from village to village. To mark the celebration, 6 white doves are released into the air, symbols of peace, of gratitude. The crowd watches them rise, wings touching light. But 3 of the doves do something no one expects. They fly straight to the statue and land at her feet. They do not leave. Through noisy streets, through blasts of fireworks and the rustle of banners, the doves stay. They rest at her feet as the statue moves on, through villages and across fields. At times they flutter just above her, like sentries of white. At other moments they fold their wings and sleep, content and untroubled, as if they understand a holiness that crowds and noise cannot disturb. Newspapers pick it up. Witnesses talk. For many, the bird's devotion becomes a living testimony of something deeper than coincidence. And then, on a night heavy with candlelight, during a solemn mass in Lisbon, 2 doves fly to the altar and perch, one on each side. They bow their heads, as if joining the faithful in reverence. At the moment the Eucharist is elevated, the 3rd dove lifts off Mary's crown and settles there. Wings spread, a perfect white stillness that seems to hold the breath of heaven. These images, birds flocking to a statue, animals pausing before the sacrament, are not tidy metaphors. They are encounters that rattle loose something inside us, the sense that all creation might still carry memory of and longing for the sacred. So what do we do with these moments? Are they mere curiosities? Or do they point to something deeper, a conversation between heaven and earth? Faith traditions have long taught that God uses the ordinary to communicate the extraordinary. The Bible is full of the humble made sacred. Lilies in a field, sparrows in the air, a child brought before a teacher. Prophets hear in whispers. Saints encounter God in the quiet. Saints like Francis of Assisi saw kinship with creation. He spoke to the birds as if they were companions in praise. He recognized that the same Creator who made us also made the sparrow and the stag. When creation responds, when an animal pauses or bows, perhaps it is a remembering, an instinctive reply to its maker. Look closer. In each of the scenes we've described, something else is happening beyond the spectacle. There is the theme of approach, a creature drawn toward a place where the faithful believe God dwells. There is the theme of recognition, an instinct or disposition that looks, bows, and then returns to the world changed. And there is the theme of invitation. These moments prod the human heart to slow down, to wonder, to ask, is God nearer than I thought? For Catholics, the Eucharist is central. It is not an abstract idea, but a presence, something that calls for reverence, silence, awe. When animals stop at the tabernacle, when doves flock to a statue of Mary, they teach us something very simple. Reverence is not only for the intellect. It is first of all posture, a softening of the heart. Mary herself is often pictured as the one who leads us closer. She is the one who, in Catholic devotion, always points toward Christ. She does not call attention to herself. She calls attention to the child she bore, to the man who walked the roads, healed the sick, and taught love. In the tenderness of a mother's presence, we find a bridge between heaven and earth, a place where even birds might feel at home. But let us be honest, not every curious sight is a miracle. People can be quick to declare signs where none exist. Skepticism is healthy, yet skepticism need not close the heart. Even the questioning soul can stand before these stories and say, maybe there's more here than chance. If you watch the deer in St. Eustace, the dogs in Baltimore, the hummingbird in Brazil, the doves in Portugal, you'll notice something consistent. Silence matters. Attention matters. The moments are small. The power is quiet. And frequently, the effect is this, a rereading of the world. You begin to see ordinary life as threaded with sacred meaning. A small pause, a bowed head, a bird's landing. These become invitations to slow your own step. So here is a simple challenge. Look for small signs. They come when we least expect them. A leaf held still in sunlight, a stray dog resting at a church door, a bird that refuses to be hurried. Tell yourself, I will notice. I will not always explain away the wonder. Sometimes I will let it reach me. In closing, we return to the heart of all these stories, a longing for presence. Whether you speak of it as grace, as God, as a whisper of the divine, or simply as the feeling stirred when the world shows us compassion without words, these moments remind us that we are not alone. They remind us that reverence is possible, even natural. That creation itself keeps memory of its maker. That Mary, in her humility and tenderness, points us toward the one who is mercy and love. If you felt distant or distracted, let these stories be a small invitation. Bow, even if just once in silence. Light a candle. Sit in quiet. Let the ordinary become a doorway. And if you are moved, if your heart stirs at the sight of sentient life drawn toward the sacred, share that wonder. Tell someone. Tend the feeling. Let it shift the way you see the world. Thank you for listening. If these stories touched you, consider pausing for a moment of prayer or reflection, or simply sit in the silence and listen to what the world is quietly saying. May we learn from the deer that walks in a church, from the hummingbird that bows, from the dogs that wait, and from the doves that keep vigil, that the sacred still finds a way into the small things. May our hearts be open to the quiet signs, and may reverence lead us home.